The moment my mother laughed at my boyfriend, something cracked. Not loud, not dramatic, just sharp enough to sting. "Him?" she said, gesturing with her wineglass like she was pointing at a stain on the carpet. "Honey, please. You've always settled for less. It's kind of your thing." The patio erupted in polite chuckles. Someone actually snorted. I stood there in my scrubs because I'd come straight from a 12-hour shift, smiling the way you learn to smile when you've told families their loved ones didn't make it. 4 minutes later, a car door closed in the driveway, and the man my mother least expected walked through the gate, looked her dead in the eyes, and said, "Actually, I'm her fiancé, and I believe we've met before." I knew I'd made a mistake the second I pulled into my parents' driveway. Not because of the balloon arch sagging in the humidity like a deflated promise. Not because of the catering van blocking the garage, or the valet my mother had hired for a backyard birthday party because God forbid anyone park on the street like normal people. It was the banner. Celebrating 60 years of grace, it read in gold cursive, stretched across the fence like a declaration of war. My mother's name isn't Grace. She just thinks it describes her. I hadn't been home in almost a year. Holidays were excuses I'd mastered. Double shifts, patient emergencies, the kind of reasons no one could argue with without looking heartless. But 60 was different. 60 was the kind of milestone my mother would weaponize for decades if I missed it. So here I was, still in scrubs because I'd promised Marcus I'd only stay an hour, pulling a gift bag from my passenger seat like it was a shield. My sister met me at the gate. Victoria, 3 years older. Perfect highlights, perfect marriage, perfect 3-bedroom colonial in the suburbs. She looked me up and down the way she always did, cataloging every flaw. "You couldn't change?" she asked. "I came from work. You could have planned better." I didn't answer. Answering Victoria only gave her ammunition. The backyard was already full. Neighbors, church friends, my mother's book club. People I half recognized from a childhood I'd spent trying to escape. A string quartet played something classical in the corner because apparently a Bluetooth speaker wasn't sophisticated enough. I spotted my mother near the dessert table, holding court in a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She saw me at the same moment I saw her. Her smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Rachel," she said, arms opening in that practiced embrace that never quite reached her eyes. "You made it. Happy birthday, Mom." I handed her the gift bag. She took it without looking inside. "You look tired," she said. "Are you eating enough? You're getting that hollow look again." "I'm fine. I'm just being honest, sweetheart. That's what mothers do." There it was, the phrase that had defined my entire childhood. Just being honest. The justification for every critique, every comparison, every carefully aimed observation that left bruises no one else could see. My father appeared beside her, quieter, smaller somehow. He'd always been smaller in her presence. He squeezed my shoulder once, a gesture that might have been support or might have been a warning. Hard to tell anymore. "Your sister's pregnant again," my mother announced to no one in particular. "Did she tell you?" "Third one. Some women are just meant for it, I suppose." She glanced at me. "Others have different paths." I felt the familiar heat crawl up my neck. 29 years old, and I still couldn't stand in my mother's backyard without feeling like a disappointment in sneakers. "I'm happy for her," I managed. "Of course you are." My mother patted my arm. "You've always been so supportive. It's one of your better qualities." A cousin I hadn't seen since high school wandered over and asked what I was doing these days. "She's a nurse," my mother answered before I could open my mouth. "At that hospital downtown. The busy one. ER trauma nurse," I corrected quietly. Same thing. It wasn't, but I'd stopped explaining years ago. Marcus was supposed to arrive in an hour. He'd had a surgery that ran late, something complicated with a pediatric case he couldn't leave. I understood. That's what happens when you love someone who saves lives for a living. You learn to wait. What I didn't understand was how I was going to get through 60 more minutes of this. The comments started slowly, the way they always did. "Remember when Rachel wanted to be a doctor? That was adorable. She was always more of a helper type. Support staff. At least nursing is stable. Not everyone can handle the pressure of real medical work." I smiled through it. Nodded. Sipped the wine someone had handed me without tasting it. This was the rhythm of my family. Soft jabs disguised as observations. Faint praise that somehow landed like criticism. By the time the sun started to set, I'd been reminded of every failed audition, abandoned hobby, and mediocre report card from a childhood that ended 15 years ago. My mother saved the best for the toast. She stood on the small platform someone had built for the occasion, microphone in hand, champagne glass raised. She thanked everyone for coming. She praised my father for tolerating her all these years. She spent 4 full minutes talking about Victoria's accomplishments, her beautiful family, her natural grace. Then, she looked at me. "And Rachel," she said, pausing just long enough for it to feel deliberate. "My backup daughter. Always there when we need her, even if she can't always be what we hoped." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Nervous, uncertain, but laughter nonetheless. I stood frozen, glass in hand, face carefully neutral because showing pain in this family was just another form of losing. That's when I heard the car door. I turned toward the driveway just as Marcus came through the side gate. He was still in his hospital badge, sleeves rolled up, looking like he'd run across the parking lot to get here. His eyes found mine immediately, always mine first. He smiled once, small and private, then walked straight toward where my mother still stood on her little stage. "Mrs. Donovan," he said, voice carrying across the suddenly quiet patio. "I'm Marcus Chen, Rachel's fiancé. I believe we've actually met before." My mother's face went through 3 expressions in 2 seconds. Confusion, recognition, something that looked almost like fear. I watched her grip tighten on the microphone. "I don't think Last month," Marcus continued pleasantly. "The hospital board meeting. You're in administration at Street Catherine's, right? I'm the new chief of surgery." The silence that followed wasn't polite. It was stunned. My mother worked at Street Catherine's, had worked there for 20 years in hospital administration. And 3 weeks ago, the board had announced a new chief of surgery who was reshaping the entire department. A young hotshot, people said, some kind of prodigy. They said his name, but it hadn't registered because I'd stopped paying attention to anything connected to my mother years ago. Now that name was standing in her backyard, holding my hand, wearing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "The trauma surgeon," my mother said slowly. "The one who restructured the surgical department." "Yes." Marcus nodded. "Lovely party, by the way. Rachel talks about you often." The way he said it made clear that what I'd told him wasn't flattering. My mother recovered faster than I expected. She always did. "Well," she said, setting down the microphone with a careful click. "This is quite a surprise." She looked at me then, and I saw something I'd never seen before in her eyes. Calculation. The party shifted after that. Suddenly, people wanted to meet Marcus. Suddenly, my mother was steering him toward important guests, introducing him with a warmth she'd never directed at me. "My daughter's fiancé," she kept saying, like she'd arranged the whole thing herself. I hung back, watching, a strange numbness settling into my chest. This was how it always went. Anything good in my life became hers to claim. Any success became something she'd predicted or enabled or deserved credit for. Marcus caught my eye across the patio. "You okay?" his look asked. I nodded once. But I wasn't. Not really. After an hour of small talk and strategic introductions, my mother finally cornered me near the kitchen door. Her smile was fixed, her voice low. "Why didn't you tell me? Tell you what? That you were dating someone important. Someone who matters." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "He mattered to me before you knew his title." She waved her hand dismissively. "You know what I mean. This changes things. We could have planned this better. Introduced him properly. Instead, you let me make that toast. You chose to make that toast." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't start, Rachel. Not tonight. I'm not starting anything. You always do this. Make everything about you. I have 200 guests out there, and you're sulking about a joke. Backup daughter isn't a joke. It's a term of endearment." She said it like she believed it. Maybe she did. That was the terrifying part. Maybe in her mind, 29 years of subtle cruelty was just love with sharper edges. My father appeared in the doorway, looking uncomfortable. "Everything okay?" "Fine," my mother said brightly. "Just catching up." She squeezed my arm hard enough to leave marks and walked back toward her party. I stayed in the kitchen for a long time, staring at the catering trays, breathing slowly. Marcus found me there 10 minutes later. "We can leave," he said quietly. "Whenever you want. 30 more minutes. You don't owe them anything." I know. But I stayed anyway because leaving too early would become another story my mother told. Rachel always was dramatic. Rachel never could handle family events. Rachel. We left at 9. My mother hugged Marcus like they were old friends and barely touched me. "We'll have dinner soon," she called out as we walked to his car. "Celebrate properly." I didn't answer. In the car, Marcus was quiet for a long time. "Finally," he said. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you about her hospital. You didn't know she worked there. I never told you the name. Still, I should have connected it. It's fine. It wasn't fine. Nothing about tonight was fine. But that was a conversation for another day." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying my mother's words on an endless loop. "Back up, daughter," the term she'd laughed off as affection. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "Mom's upset. You should call her." I didn't respond. Another text, 30 minutes later. "She's just worried about appearances. You know how she is." I knew exactly how she was. That was the problem. The next morning, I woke to an email from my HR department. Subject line: "Address verification needed." My stomach dropped before I even opened it. "Dear Miss Donovan, we've received returned mail from the address listed on your employee file. Please verify your current mailing address to ensure proper delivery of tax documents and benefits information." I stared at the screen. My mailing address was my apartment. Had been for 3 years. Why would mail be returning? I called HR immediately. They were apologetic, confused. Apparently, they'd received a request to update my address several months ago. The new address listed was my parents' house. "I never submitted that request," I said, my voice carefully controlled. "It came through our employee portal. Your login credentials. Someone had accessed my employee account, changed my address, intercepted my mail." I hung up and sat very still for a very long time. Then I called the apartment building office, my bank, my credit card companies. One by one, the picture became clearer. My mother's address was listed on 3 different accounts: my bank statements, my credit card bills, and something that made my blood run cold. Correspondence from an attorney's office regarding the estate of my grandmother, who had died 8 months ago. I hadn't known there was an estate. I hadn't known there was correspondence, because someone had made sure I never received it. I drove to my parents' house that afternoon without calling ahead. My mother answered the door in her gardening gloves, looking surprised. "Rachel, I wasn't expecting. Where's my mail?" Her face flickered. "I don't know what you—" "My mail, Mom. The bank statements, the credit card bills, the letters from Grandma's attorney." She stepped back. "You should come inside." "I'm not coming inside until you tell me what you've been doing." "Lower your voice." "The neighbors." "I don't care about the neighbors." My father appeared behind her, looking gray. "Rachel, please. Let's discuss this calmly." "Did you know?" I asked him. "Did you know she was intercepting my mail?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. My mother pulled off her gardening gloves slowly. "I was protecting you." "From what?" "From making mistakes. You've always been impulsive, Rachel. You don't think things through. When I saw the letter from Martha's attorney, I knew you'd do something rash. Grandma left me something in her will, and you hid it from me. She left you the lake house." My mother said it like it was an accusation. "The house that's been in our family for generations. And she left it to you, not Victoria. Not the daughter who actually visits. Not the one who named her child after her. You." I felt the ground shift beneath me. The lake house. Summers of my childhood. The only place I'd ever felt completely safe. She left it to me because she loved me. My mother laughed bitterly. "She left it to you because she knew it would hurt me." "That's what my mother did. Used her property as weapons. So you hid it." I was trying to find a solution, a way to divide it fairly. You don't need an entire house, Rachel. You're barely stable enough to manage an apartment. I stared at her. Really looked at her, maybe for the first time. All those years of criticism suddenly made a different kind of sense. It wasn't about making me better. It was about keeping me small. About ensuring I never had anything she didn't control. I want every piece of mail you have, I said quietly. Everything you've intercepted. Now. Rachel. Now. Something in my voice must have convinced her, because she turned and walked inside without another word. My father stayed on the porch, not meeting my eyes. I didn't know about all of it, he said quietly. Just the attorney letters. She said she was handling it. And you didn't think I should know my grandmother left me her house? She said she was protecting you. She was protecting herself. He didn't argue. 20 minutes later, I left with a box full of my own mail. Bank statements going back 6 months. Credit card offers. Medical bills from a procedure I'd had last year. And at the bottom, 3 letters from a law firm in Vermont. The last one marked, "Final notice. Response required." I sat in my car and read them all. The house was mine. Had been mine for 8 months. The attorney had been trying to reach me to finalize the paperwork. The final notice warned that if I didn't respond within 30 days, the property would enter probate and potentially be claimed by other family members. The letter was dated 3 weeks ago. I called the attorney's office from my car, hands shaking. I explained everything. They were understanding, suspicious. They asked if I wanted to file a complaint. I said I needed to think about it. That night, I told Marcus everything. He listened without interrupting, his face growing harder with every detail. "That's mail fraud," he said finally. "Federal offense. She's my mother. That doesn't make it legal. I know. What do you want to do?" I looked at the stack of letters on my coffee table. 6 months of my life, intercepted and hidden. A house I didn't know I owned. An inheritance stolen not through force but through silence. "I want to handle this my way," I said. "I want it documented, clean, undeniable. And then I want to never owe her anything again." Marcus nodded slowly. "Okay, then that's what we do." The next 3 weeks were surgical in their precision. I changed every address back to my apartment, set up informed delivery with the post office, froze my credit, filed an identity theft report, not pressing charges but creating a paper trail. Marcus helped me draft a letter to my mother outlining exactly what she'd done and exactly what would happen if she ever accessed my information again. We sent it certified mail, signature required. Her response came not by letter but by phone. 17 calls in 2 days. I didn't answer any of them. Then Victoria started calling. "Mom's devastated. She was only trying to help. You're overreacting. You're tearing this family apart." I saved every voicemail, documented every text. Let the record build itself. 2 weeks after I sent the letter, I received an email from Street Catherine's HR department. Not my hospital, my mother's. A concerned party had reached out regarding potential conflicts of interest involving Dr. Marcus Chen and his relationship with an employee's family member. Marcus showed me the inquiry his department had received. Anonymous complaint, suggesting improper influence, requesting investigation. "She's trying to get you fired," I said, something cold settling in my chest. "She's trying to scare you," Marcus corrected. "Through me." He wasn't wrong, but he wasn't entirely right either. This wasn't just about fear. This was about control. About punishing me for stepping outside the lines she'd drawn around my life. The hospital conducted their investigation. Found nothing, because there was nothing to find. Marcus and I had disclosed our relationship properly. There was no overlap in our work. The complaint was dismissed as unfounded, but the message was clear. My mother would rather burn down my fiancé's career than let me exist outside her control. The confrontation came on a Thursday. I arranged it deliberately. Video call, so there would be a record. Marcus present, so there would be a witness. My mother appeared on screen, looking wounded, victimized. My father sat beside her like a prop. "I don't understand why you're doing this," she started immediately. "I'm establishing boundaries." "Boundaries!" She laughed bitterly. "You've been reading too many self-help books. I've been reading your mail fraud." I was helping you, Rachel. Like I always have. Like I've done your entire life. Intercepting my inheritance wasn't help. That house should have gone to Victoria. To someone who would appreciate it, not to someone who's always running away from this family. I'm not running. I'm protecting myself from you. Silence. My father shifted uncomfortably. There's no need for dramatics, my mother said finally. Let's just move past this. I'm not moving past anything. I'm moving forward, without interference. If you access my accounts again, if you contact my employer, if you try to interfere with Marcus's position, I will press charges. You would do that to your own mother? You already did this to your own daughter. Her face hardened. After everything we sacrificed for you, you sacrificed nothing for me. You controlled me. And when I found success, you didn't arrange. You tried to destroy it. The call ended with my mother in tears, my father looking ill, and my sister sending angry texts I didn't read. That night, I slept better than I had in years. The lake house paperwork finalized 3 weeks later. I drove up to Vermont on a Saturday morning, Marcus beside me, to see it for the first time since my grandmother's funeral. It looked smaller than I remembered, worn around the edges, but when I stood on the dock and looked out at the water, I felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Home. Not the place, the feeling, the sense that somewhere in the world, there was a space that was mine. Not borrowed, not controlled, not contingent on someone else's approval. Mine. My mother didn't call anymore. Victoria sent one last text. You've broken Mom's heart. I hope you're happy. I read it once and deleted it. Happiness wasn't really the point. The point was that for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for permission to exist. The point was that I'd stopped trying to earn love from people who'd only ever offered it with conditions attached. Marcus and I got married the following spring. Small ceremony. Handful of friends. No family from my side. My mother found out through Instagram and sent a card that said, "Congratulations on your special day. Families should be together." I didn't respond. Some people mistake silence for cruelty. But sometimes silence is just the sound of someone finally choosing themselves. My grandmother knew that. That's why she left me the house. Not because she wanted to hurt my mother, but because she wanted to give me something no one could take away. A place to stand. A foundation that didn't depend on anyone else's approval. Last month, I got a letter from Victoria. She wants to reconnect. Says Mom has changed. Says the family isn't the same without me. Maybe it's true. Maybe people can change. Maybe forgiveness is possible. But I've learned something in the past year that no one in my family ever taught me. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors. I get to choose who walks through them. And right now, that door is exactly where I need it to be. Closed, but not locked. Ready for the day when someone knocks with clean hands. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been called too much for simply protecting your peace, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. And if you want more stories like this, real stories about boundaries, resilience, and the quiet strength it takes to choose yourself, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. We're still telling them. And we're just getting started.